my name is Jenica and I'm a resident graduate student at the Field Museum. Since the shutdown, I'm no longer commuting to the museum to go to work. Instead, I spend my time doing things like writing papers, reading papers, preparing the next stage in experiments. But now that I don't have to spend 30 minutes in the morning making my way to the museum, I have a little bit more time in the morning to get ready. And one of the things I've been doing a little bit more frequently is doing my makeup. So for this video, I am going to do some swatches of the astronomy-themed Galaxy Chic palette from BH Cosmetics. I'm not going to be swatching them in the order that they appear in this palette. I'm going to be doing something a little bit more relevant to astronomy. So first up, we have the shade Sun. And the Sun is primarily composed of hydrogen and helium, which are the two lightest elements in the periodic table. But the Sun is also the most massive object in our solar system. Next up is the shade Mercury. And Mercury is a terrestrial planet with an unusual composition. It is mostly a metallic core, and scientists think that it is mostly core because it experienced a giant impact that stripped most of the rocky mantle away from the planet. The next shade up is Venus, and I think Venus is a really cool planet because it is actually a lot like Earth. It's about the same size and it's a little bit closer to the Sun. Because the Sun was putting out less energy in its past, Venus was actually more in the habitable zone than Earth was. So it's possible that life could have arisen on Venus, but we don't know for sure because it's also very volcanic and it experiences a lot of resurfacing events. The next shade up is Earth, which is this one right here. And the important thing to remember is that Earth is a planet. When we come up with models on solar system dynamics, it's important to make sure that Earth can fit these models as well. The next shade is Mars. And of course, we've done a lot of exploration on the surface of Mars. You might see a lot of news stories that say, oh, scientists have discovered water on Mars. Didn't we already know that? Well, the thing about those announcements is that we find water in new forms, in new places, new ways that water has shaped the surface. So we are still discovering a lot about Mars's past habitability. The next shade is Jupiter. And Jupiter is the second most massive object in the solar system, and like the Sun, even though it contains most of the mass, it is primarily composed of hydrogen and helium. The next shade is Saturn. Now we know Saturn for its beautiful ring system, and these rings are likely moons that have been ripped apart by the tidal forces as they got too close into the actual yellow body itself. So when you're looking at those beautiful rings, you are looking at the remnants of dead moons. So in this palette, there's no shade called Uranus, but I'm going to use this light blue called Electra. So Uranus and then Neptune are ice giants, and they get their blue color from the methane ices that are in their atmospheres. Now, these ice giants also have other ices in them, like water ice and ammonia. So these are objects that have compositions quite different than those in the inner solar system. And that's because it is much cooler out in the outer solar system, so things like these ices can condense and can exist. So I've swatched the Sun and then the 8 planets, but there are a couple of other objects in here that we can also swatch. So we can swatch Pluto, which is a dwarf planet, and the reason that it's a dwarf planet and not a planet is because it is located in something called the Kuiper Belt, and there are actually a lot of objects in the Kuiper Belt that are a lot like Pluto. So if we want to add Pluto as a planet, we're actually going to have to think about other objects in this belt as well. If you don't want 8 planets, you might be getting more like 20 planets. Speaking of dwarf planets, This is the shade Asteroid, and I'm going to put it in the asteroid belt. And the asteroid belt has a lot of very small objects, but it also has some larger dwarf planets like Ceres and Vesta. And actually the asteroid belt is the source of most of our meteorites. So I'm going to swatch the shade Meteor. Now a meteor, I'm going to put it right here next to Earth, because a meteor is the flash of light as an object comes through Earth's atmosphere. So a meteor is the light, the meteorite is the object that you pick up off the ground, and a meteoroid is that object when it's still in space. So there's also the shade Moon, and aside from Mars and the asteroid belt, we also have meteorites from the moon. So those are our solar system shades, but there's one more astronomically relevant shade, and that is the Milky Way. So the Milky Way is the galaxy in which our solar system is located, and it is a barred spiral galaxy. So that describes the shape of the galaxy, and it is a shape that reflects that, you know, there actually has been some tidal interactions with the galaxy. It has encountered other galaxies. It does have a history that we actually can't really untangle with what we know now. So just to be complete, I want to swatch a couple of other shades. So there is the shade Aphrodite, and then we have the shade Prometheus, and then there is the shade Cosmic. No astronomy terms. So here are all the shades of the Galaxy Chic palette from BH Cosmetics. So if I had to review the Galaxy Chic palette, I would say that these shades, while they're pretty difficult to use to make a full eye look, but these make really good eye toppers, and they're really good for finishing off a look. This is a baked formula, and I find these shades pretty creamy. Some of them can be a little patchy, but it's pretty easy to go over them with a damp brush or even using your finger for the best payoff. So those are my feelings on the palette. As far as my feelings on the solar system goes, I think it's pretty cool. So thanks for watching this video, and hopefully you learned a little something about this palette and about the solar system.